Hey everybody, it's Jim here, and today we're going to be talking about Fender's two most popular short-scale guitars, the Fender Mustang and the Fender Jaguar. They have a lot of things that make them unique to one another. We're going to be going over those in this video, as well as the obligatory sound samples. But first, I'd like to give a brief overview of each model to begin with. But in case you're not familiar with short scale guitars, these two Fenders have a 24-inch scale length instead of a 25.5, which you would find on a Telecaster, a Stratocaster, or a Jazzmaster by example, making them a little bit slinkier to play and also more compact. There's a few things about the Fender Mustang though that make it really its own kind of animal. The first has to be it has a very unique vibrato system to it. When you think about the vibrato that comes on a Jazzmaster or a Jaguar, for example, which we're going to be looking at in a second, the arm right here pushes in to an actual collet. With this guitar, you do have it go in, but it's top mounted, so it has to screw in with a little grub screw right there, and you can kind of fine tune and adjust it, but you want to make sure that this bar is not actually touching the bass, which is something you never ever have to worry about with a different kind of Fender vibrato system. However, in practice, it's really responsive. It's its own kind of vibe, separate from the ones that come in the Jazzmaster and the Jaguar. But another really unique but sometimes misunderstood aspect of this guitar are the electronics, including the pickups themselves. Sometimes people will purchase Fender Mustangs hoping to sound out of the box just like their favorite grunge band or punk rock band from the 90s and think, wait, something's not right. What's wrong with my guitar? Well, a lot of those bands used humbucker-sized single coils or went full humbucker in order to achieve those kinds of sounds for the records that we all know and love to this day. But from the factory, most Fender Mustang single coil pickups are low output. So they don't exactly make for a great pairing with that kind of higher gain stuff, although as you'll see in the example, I think it does a pretty decent job. Onto the switching. This controls the neck pickup by itself. There is no three-way toggle switch to switch. You have to manually slide these things back and forth. If it's in the middle, it's off. Same thing applies here for the bridge pickup, and you can get these really cool honky sounds when you have them in opposite directions with both pickups engaged. That's really unique to the Fender Mustang. Wrapping things up with the electronics, you have a 250K volume pot, which is standard for models like a Telecaster and a Strat. And when it comes to the neck, outside of the scale length, I'm not going to mention too many other specifics of it in regards to the thickness, the radius, or things of that nature, because that's all going to vary based on which model of Mustang that you're purchasing. But what I can tell you is that's going to be pretty uniform regardless. The body is going to be pretty light compared to a lot of other guitars, and especially compared to a Fender Jaguar. So if you're somebody that's a little bit smaller, or you like having a lighter guitar when you're standing up and performing, this might be a really good option for you. And that leads us into the Jaguar, my favorite offset of all time. Also 24-inch scale length on it, but one thing that you could tell straight away by looking at it, we're going to start with the electronics here. These have metal claws around the pickups because they're higher output, and that's actually helping to reduce some of the hum or noise associated with single coil pickups that may put out more output to them. You do have your switching is down here, but it's a little bit easier to get your way around on a Jaguar than it is on a Mustang, because up and down, neck pickup, that's on, push it down, it's off, bridge pickup, on, off. And then this is the strangle, which kind of takes a little bit of the bass end out of the actual tone of the instrument when you're actually plugged in. You have a 1 meg volume pot versus a 250K. So as far as the high end goes, combine that with the fact that these are a little bit of a hotter pickup than ones that you're going to typically find in a stock Fender Mustang, it's going to be really bright. And some people would even say Jazzmasters and Jaguars can have a real ice picky kind of tone to them because of that. Next, The vibrato system, we kind of talked about this earlier with the Mustang, but this is no screw-in, this is no anything underneath the actual plate itself other than a collet that you have to really push in and make sure it's all the way in, because if you don't, and several people have commented, I can't get the bar to sit still, you really have to put in a little bit of force for it to click in all the way. Otherwise, you are going to have an arm that is just, yeah, it's going to be pretty flop. And that brings us to the rhythm circuit, which you will also not find on a traditional Fender Mustang guitar. When this switch right here is down, all of it is disengaged, and the rest of the electrical components work as normal and can be adjusted as normal. Once you flip it up, all of this ceases to work. You only have these two sliders for a volume and a tone, and it's just the neck pickup. And what it does is it really, really mellows this guitar out. It takes a lot of the high end out of it, and that's because the pot values that are smaller pots here are different than what you're going to get in the 1 megs here and here on the guitar. Now, in regards to the playability and the feel of a Fender Jaguar in a very general sense, there will always be exceptions. However, the Jaguar, more often than not, is going to be the heaviest out of all of the Fender guitars that are available, even a Jazzmaster. And if you take a quick look at it, it'll make sense why. With the Jazzmaster, the pickguard covers everything as far as the controls go, minus the rhythm circuit itself. You have an extra piece of chrome right here on the Jaguar that you do not have, so that's going to add a tiny little bit of weight right there, and that actually does add up. Neither the Jazzmaster nor the Jaguar are notoriously known for being particularly light guitars. You can expect them to be anywhere from 8 to 9 pounds, but when you compare it with the Mustang, that's about a pound, pound and a half on an average. But I wouldn't let any of that scare you off. You can find these right around 8 pounds fairly easily depending on where you're shopping for them. And they're really comfortable. I love the body shape of the Fender Jaguar and the Fender Jazzmaster. It just fits like a glove. They're really cool guitars to sit and play as well as to stand up and give a performance. Now, kudos to you if you're somebody who did not use the timestamps to skip ahead to this section of the video. I know it's always the most popular. I do appreciate that. But before we get into the sound samples, I just want to make one thing clear here. I used the same exact settings on the amp and on both of the pedals that we're going to be using, so neither guitar was dialed in perfectly in that sense. So if you hear the Mustang especially sound a little bit kind of dull, it's because if I had turned up the treble to the extent that I wanted to and then used the Jaguar right afterwards for the same recording, this would have made your ears bleed. Anyways, start off with some clean tones. Tone King Gremlin, Strymon Volante, mic'd up by the 57. Now, when I do sound demonstrations, I don't typically separate driven tones from the clean tones, but in this instance, I thought it was necessary to kind of drive the point home. Just because a guitar has single coil pickups in it doesn't mean it's going to sound anywhere near another guitar that also has single coil pickups, even from their same exact brand. The rest of the electronics, as well as the output that the pickups are actually wound to, are going to make a really significant difference in how they sound and how they react in the same exact scenarios. Next up, we are going to combine our last clips together. We're going to start with some light overdrive using the Benson preamp pedal, and then we're going to turn on the Walrus Audio Eras to see if we can get some of that kind of really dirty stuff going on. Now, before we get going, I just want to say both of these guitars are awesome, and you shouldn't take any demo on YouTube as the end-all be-all when it comes to the sound comparisons. Your rig at your house, using your pedals mic'd up if you do it that way, however you want to do it with the microphones that you have, is going to alter all of those things. How you adjust the EQ on the amplifier, like we started earlier. It can make a gigantic difference. These are all baseline sounds to give you a general idea of how these two specific guitars sounded through the same rig, as well as go over some of the information about the models in case you're not able to get your hands on both to do a proper comparison in person. However, the comments down below, let me know which one you liked. Let me know if anything surprised you in this video. I'm sure that there will be a few of those kinds of comments, but they're both awesome. You really can't go wrong. However, just know, just because they're a short scale doesn't mean they really are all that similar after all. If you enjoyed this, please leave a like, comment, and subscribe. I will see you on the next video. Take it easy, everybody.